Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. I want to jump into today's devotion. Again, number 2 or 3, I'm not sure, in the series on Job. Brother TJ's been doing, I want to go with 3. I think that's right. But this past week was entitled Dark Nights of the Soul. And so we had several points, and I'm going to look at more of number 3 on the time factor. So up to this point in time, if you've not been following us or watching the services or the other devotions, up to this point in time, Job, who is a very extremely wealthy man, has lost basically all of his livestock and his children. Job was a very godly man, upright, um, and the devil came around, and the hard part to understand about this is why Job is going through these things. And, it's hard for us to understand that, but we see in the end, God being with him through the whole time. And so I think it serves as an example that, in this world, we're going to have grief and we'll have sorrows, and there's going to be things that, because of the curse of sin, that we'll have to go through as a victim of living in this world. And so in that, I think all this stuff serves as a really good example. So I want to jump right into the scripture reading. I want to jump in at chapter 2, verse 11. At this point in time, Job has now lost his children. He has lost all his livestock, as I previously said. And his wife has basically told him to, you just curse God and die. Come on, Job, get with it. Fix what's wrong. You've messed up somewhere along the line. And let's get back to the good life that we once lived. And Job says, you speak like a foolish woman. Are we going to curse God when things are bad? And, but then not thank him, and just always be dependent upon the good things of God. And so now Job's 3 good buddies are going to come around and really pick him up. Not really, but let's see what happens here. It says, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil, so again, just like his wife, Job, you messed up somewhere along the line. We're going to come and find out what's going on. It says, that was come upon him. They came from every one of his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shunammite, and Zophar, the Naamite. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. So they're coming to help Job out of this situation. When they lifted up their eyes afar off, they knew him not. Okay, because at this point in time, Satan has made a deal with the Lord that, well, of course, all's well. He's lost his stuff, but, you let me touch his body and let sickness come upon him, and he'll curse you to your face. And so God permits the devil to do that, but just spare his soul. And so he's now covered head to toe in bulls, in sores. And he has went and took some pottery and broke it off and has been scraping it. So his friends can't tell anything about him. So they lifted up their voice and they wept, and they rent every one his mantle, sprinkled dust upon their head toward heaven. And they sat down with him on the ground 7 days, 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was great. After this, okay, so we jump to chapter 3. And Brother Ron had mentioned this, as did Brother TJ, as to, why was chapter 3 written, and just talks about the dark nights of the soul. So after this, Job opened his mouth, and we're going to start seeing some cracks in the character here, or the surface of Job. The pressure starting to get to him. And he cursed his day, and Job spake and said, let the day perish wherein I was born, and the night in which it was said, there is a man-child conceived. For I should now have lain still and been quiet. I should have slept. Then had I been at rest with kings and counselors of the earth, which build desolate places for themselves, or with princes that had gold, who filled their houses with silver. Or as a hidden untimely birth, I had not been, as infants which never saw light. There the wicked cease from troubling, and their weary be at rest. And so Job is forgetting all the blessings and all the things that he's had up to this point in time. And he's basically saying it would have been better off had I never been born. Had I never been born, I wouldn't be dealing with this insurmountable amount of grief that I'm dealing with. And so it's easy to ask the questions, why? Why is all these things happening? Why is Job going through this? You know, Job doesn't know at this point in time, and in time he will, but or at least get a little better understanding. But it took me back to when my niece Haley, who's now in her 30s, was born and was probably about a year old and just started walking, that we noticed that her feet turned out and that she walked kind of funny. And so my sister took her to get her x-rayed and stuff, and come to find out that both of her hips were dislocated and she had been born that way. And so long story short, she ends up at the Shriners Hospital, where they had to do 2 different surgeries, break and reset one hip, and she was incapacitated from about to her chest all the way down to her feet in a big cast with the bar in between it. Just had a little spot in the middle of the cast there where she was able to use the restroom and stuff, and wear a diaper and all. And then, you know, she got through that process, and they had to do the other hip. So she spent time, saying 6 months or more, in that situation. And we would go down several times when she'd have surgery and for checkups and stuff, and go to South Carolina to the Shriners Hospital. And it was an eye-opening place. Go in there, and it's a super nice hospital, but you would see all these little kids, from teenagers down, who one little boy in her room had no arms or no legs, and he would just roll through the halls and get on the nurse's cart, and he would push, and he would get where he wanted to go and just roll off and come in there and just bounce around everywhere, just the happiest little kid in the world. And, then we seen a teenage girl who was a cheerleader. Everything was fine. And then me and Dad had to come home for school and work. Mom, Tammy, stayed, and they talked about how they saw her a couple of days later, and she had her legs removed. She had a tumor or something in it. And you think, wow, and why these kids, having to go through so much grief. And on top of that, some of them were down there with no family to care for them. They just dropped them off and left. And, we'd work with different churches and stuff and help and do services and crafts and things with the kids. But it left as a daily reminder. Well, not a daily reminder, because sometimes I forget and I start complaining with a headache or a slight injury or something like that. But I think about those kids and what they went through. I don't understand why they went through it, but I know this: it served as a reminder to me to be grateful for the good times that we go through, and as a reminder, knowing this, that God, when we go through the rough times of life, He's right there with us. And the same is true when we look at this chapter of Job. So not to be too long, I want to finish with this. Hebrews 3:5 says, let your conversations be without covetousness. In other words, what is covetousness? I wish I had this, or this. Or it could also be, I wish I wasn't in this, or this. Okay? Look at other people's life. Well, they've got it made. They're not having to go through what I'm going through, or this has been such a tough ordeal, or whatever else. Remember this: other people have it. There's as bad as we think it is for us, there's others out there going through a lot worse things as well. But here's the promise of God: for He hath said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. As a child of God, you have that promise this morning, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man shall do unto me. So I think that's the purpose for these dark souls of the night, to be a reminder that even in the valleys, God is with us, but in the mountaintops, God is with us as well. So I pray that blesses someone today. If you've not been watching these sermons or these devotions, I ask that you go back and look at them. It's been very good. And no matter what you're going through, know this: God's there with you. Love you guys.